Yo, KCC family, welcome, welcome, welcome. Before we get to this powerful message, we first want to give you a chance to partner with us in giving. God loves a cheerful giver. So below, you will see your ways to give, and we look forward to partnering with you. Let's get to the sermon.
2 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 7. And it says, "Now when the Lord saw that they humbled themselves, the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah, saying, They have humbled themselves, therefore I will not destroy them, but I will grant them some deliverance. My wrath shall not be poured out on Jerusalem by the hand of Shishak. Nevertheless, they will be his servants, that they may distinguish my service from the service of the kingdoms of the nations." For just the next few minutes, I want to preach from the subject of some deliverance. You may be seated. Some deliverance. This just kind of puzzled me as I was reading the passage. It said, "Now when the Lord saw that they had humbled themselves, the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah, saying that they have humbled themselves. Therefore, I will not destroy them, but I will grant them some deliverance." And I was like, how do you get some deliverance? I think that you're either delivered or you're not. But he says some deliverance. Well, it's just like many of us who are on this journey toward health, and we want to do well, and we make our New Year's resolutions and all the things that we do, but we don't quite do all of it. We just do part of it. So I work out. I get up in the mornings, 5:45. I do my walk, do my little calisthenics, got my weight vest on. I'm out there sweating, even in the cold. I'm getting it. But, I'm not seeing quite the results that I want. How many of y'all know why? Somebody been to the Piggly Wiggly. Talking about you ain't eating right. You got that right. Them pork chops be calling me. And Popeyes be calling me. It's just something about, food is good. And it's just something about being late, watching the games and chilling at night, man. And it's just, that snack monster just be calling me. I be like, Pookie, it be calling me. And I was just like, oh, Lord. So I got biceps and a belly. So the Lord granted me some deliverance. So I need y'all to be praying for me that the Lord will come through and I'll get this other side of my life under control. I gotta get it together. But it's good to know that I am in a house of champions that will be praying for me, that the Lord will set me free, and I'm gonna be praying for y'all. Like they say in the Kojic church, you pray for me. Come on, somebody. All right, y'all ready to dig into this word? Look at what he says. He says that I will grant you some deliverance. First of all, we got to look at this word some. Some literally means an unspecified amount or number. An unspecified amount or number. So in this context, he's saying that we don't really know what that means. It's an unspecified amount or number. But what we can derive from this text is that not everybody will be delivered, and not everybody will experience the fullness of what deliverance looks like. That's one of the things that we do know from this some deliverance. Everybody's not going to get it, and everybody's not going to get the fullness of what God wants to do. Just like on Sundays, when you gather, some of you are gathering in freedom, and some of you are gathering in bondage. Some have been delivered and some are still bound. When some don't want to make the exchange for the spirit of heaviness for the spirit of joy. Some carrying around the weight of the world instead of saying that Jesus, his yoke is easy and his burdens are light. They are burdened down with the trials of this world. Every time we come in, everybody's not on the same page, and we got to be ready for that. Can I just throw this out here real quick, just for your health? When you come in and somebody nasty, don't get mad. Because, I respond. We live in a society right now where we snap back real quick. We got Facebook prophets. We got all kind of stuff. We got people that talk on Facebook like you would have never said that to my face. So yeah. You know, we done went through all this political uprising. Folk done got bold, be like, oh, y'all ain't scared of us no more. But it's all kind of stuff. So we have these challenges that we have to walk through. And so I want you to understand this before you clap back. I want you to think about it from this, like, I don't know what's going on in their life. Pastor just got this saying he woke up in a warm bed, had a pillow, and somebody might have woke up in the car. That was my testimony at one season of my life where I was sleeping in my car. We don't know what struggles are. We don't know who got beat up last night because they wanted to come to church and their husband didn't want them to come. We don't know what folk are going through, whose kids they found out were just using drugs and strung out and not going to school and life is falling apart. We don't know what folk are going through. So for those of us who are mature in the faith, when they show up and they nasty, you who are spiritual, you are the ones that have to be loving and kind and long suffering. He didn't say suffer for, he said long suffering. That means it may last a little while. Yeah, it's like, because y'all know what? We put limits on it. We ain't like God. God said, how many times? You asked him, how many times shall I forgive him? 7 times? Being funny. And he said, no, 70 times 7. Because for us, we think if I let you make it once or twice, Byron, you done crossed over to a new territory. It's like, okay, I let you get away with it the first time. Now you got my Agent Orange acting up. Y'all know I was in the Marines, right? I don't know if y'all knew that. Yeah. So, you know, sometimes I think I got some chemical damage in there. And then. So he looks at him. And so we have to be patient with those who have not made the exchange yet. But here's the other thing about some. Some means for a little while. This is the other part about some, for some time, or in this context, it means that sometimes people could be in a place, but it's only for a season. You're not going to always stay that way. You might be broken right now, but that don't mean you have to stay broken. You might be down right now, but that don't mean you have to stay down. We get knocked down, but we're not destroyed. We're pressed, but we're not crushed. We're persecuted, but we're not abandoned. Listen, it's only for a little while. The pressure is only for a little while. It's for some time. And if you are truly his, he will get you right before you fall all the way off the cliff. This is the good thing about God. God brings order to chaos. So if your life is chaotic, guess what? God brings order to chaos. The earth was void and without form. It was chaotic. And God spoke and the world came into order. God brings things into order. If your life is out of order, God will do whatever it takes. And sometimes it's not pleasant to get you to the place where he needs for you to be. God will bring your chaos to order. He that's the kind of God we serve. He brings healing to the broken. So if you're broken, God brings healing. If you're broke, God brings wealth to those who are wealthy. God gives increase to those who sow their seeds in righteousness. This is the kind of God that we serve. He does not leave you where you are, but he will do whatever it takes to get you to where he needs for you to be. So he says it's just for a little while, but there's a process to this. I'm going to walk y'all through the process. Y'all ready to walk with me? Here we go. So God said to them, because you have humbled yourselves, this is what he says in the text, when the Lord saw that they had humbled themselves. So this is part of the process, is humility. Humility is the first step into seeing God begin to move in your life. So God says, because you have humbled yourselves, I will give you some deliverance. Humility is the absence of pride. Pride is the blessing blocker. Pride shows up in many different ways. Did you know that you can be prideful in your relationship with Christ? You can become have a religious spirit, which is pride in disguise. Because you believe you've been walking with him so long that you can now determine what God's desire and will is for somebody else's life without even consulting him. Be careful when people come to you talking about they got a word for you. Every word ain't from the Lord, amen. Some of it's their will for your life. I don't care about your will for me. I want God's will for my life. And whatever that is, if it's a little or a lot, whatever it is, as long as it's what God wants from me, I'm good with it. God will bless you because you belong to him. Here's the deal. When he says, I will grant you some deliverance, simply because you belong to him, God's going to relieve some of the pressure off your life, and he's going to bless you with some things simply because you're his. No matter if you're disobedient or not. My kids ain't always act right, but they ain't have to go hungry. Even in their cut upness, I still bless them. Now, they may not have gotten everything that was on the Christmas list. They may not have gotten everything that they asked for, but because they belong to me, they're going to always be taken care of. They're going to always be provided. I have 2 boys, and guess what? No matter what they do, where they go, I can't unson them. They're going to be my sons until Jesus called me home or called them home. They're going to be my sons. He does not unson you or undaughter you because you cut up. He will always provide for you because you belong to him. Now, that doesn't mean you can get the fullness of what he wants. You may just get some. You may get some the deliverance. You may get some of the blessing. Even with when God moves in your life, he wants to really open up the windows of heaven. But because you have not been obedient, he's got to honor his word. He says, no, I can't give you all that. Because sometimes we're not ready for it. But here's the deal. God, why would some people only settle for some deliverance? That's the question that I ask. Okay, so if this is a process, and why do some people only want some deliverance? I believe that some people still like their brokenness. I think the reason some people only want some deliverance is because they've gotten familiar and comfortable with their brokenness because they get the attention. Y'all know sickly folk that just make up sicknesses? Why we making up sicknesses, we making up phobias, we making up all kind of stuff. It's like, what? Now we got drugs for everything. And then they tell you what it's going to do to you if you take it. Y'all better be careful. Y'all got that new one out there that you know what it is. Y'all be trying to get slim sexy. You better read the fine print. You're gonna be slim in a box. Better eat you some vegetables. Get on that. All right, let me go on for some. So let me move on. Some people just want to be healed, but they don't want to be made whole. Even when you read the story of the disciples, you could see them, and it says that as they went and ministered, sometimes people got healed simply by their shadows passing by them. They were full of the Spirit. Jesus had commissioned them, and people were being healed. But this is what made it interesting, because even after like Ananias and Sapphira were killed, I think people wanted to be close enough to them to get the healing, but they didn't want to get close enough to be killed. Because, they were being persecuted, and sometimes we don't want the pain that comes with the promise. Sometimes we don't want the problems that come with being a child of God. Sometimes we don't want to go through the persecution that the church was going through. We just want the benefit package. So we say, listen, I'll take the deliverance, but you can keep the wholeness because that wholeness is going to cost me something. And I may not be ready to give this up. I want to be healed, but I don't know if I've gotten comfortable like this, and I really like the attention I get. And you may never acknowledge it because you might not even be aware of it. That's why we need friends in our life. to help us when we get off track. The second thing I think is because once you are made whole, you now have to take responsibility for your life. See, when you're broken, you can blame other people. When you're not in a good way, then it's everybody else's fault. And then you're dependent on other people to do what it is that God has created you to do. So God says, listen, when you're made whole, God now, you don't have the ability to blame anyone else, not even God. Well, why did God listen, it's human to get angry with God. God, why? I've done what you asked me to do. I've been faithful. I give, I serve, I show up. Why, God? Jesus, even in the Garden of Gethsemane, said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? It's human to be able to have those kinds of feelings, but did God really forsake him? Absolutely not. It was part of the plan and part of the process. And in order for us to be made whole, he had to be broken. And sometimes in order for others to be made whole, we have to be broken. Corinthians tells us, when we get through being pressed and crushed and persecuted and not abandoned, he says, well, we carry around in this treasure in this earthen vessel so that the surpassing greatness will be of God and not of ourselves. What's killing me is giving you life. And what we got to understand is those things that we go through, the darts that we take, are for somebody else's breakthrough. And I need some holy folk in here that don't mind taking some darts so somebody else can be set free. Is there anybody that's willing to be persecuted so that somebody else can get to know Jesus, so somebody else can be made whole? Somebody's got to take the bullet. Which means sometimes we got to swallow our pride. We got to swallow our pride. Guess what? And you got to be close enough to folk to smell like them. Woo! You can't be afraid to get a little dank on you. I know y'all got trees hanging on your mirror, but they got them other trees out there. You can't be afraid to. If you're gonna be a blessing to folk, you got to get close enough to them. And guess what? Discipleship takes time. Discipleship takes sacrifice. Discipleship takes being close to people that can hurt you. The only way somebody can hurt you is by being close to you. But guess what? As a believer, you don't have the choice to cut people off. He didn't cut us off when we broke his heart again and again and again and again. We break his heart on a daily basis, and he doesn't cut us off. And if we're going to be like him, we got to be willing to stop cutting people off and lean into what God has said. Koinonia, this is a fight. Did y'all know it's a fight? Listen, I want to encourage you today. Fight for your church. Lean into your church. Lean into your shepherd. Hold up his arms. Fight. It's a fight. Listen, I spent a lot of time in LA. And I'm from Oak Cliff. So when I graduated high school, I was 5'3", about 135 pounds. Yes, sir. I've been fighting my whole life. I've been fighting my whole life. But I tell you what, if I got into a fight and my friend ran away, oh, it was on, friend. I'm more upset with you than the dude I got beef with. Because we supposed to be family. And what I want you to know today, Koinonia, is we family. And there's a fight going on. And it ain't the time to run. It's the time to fight. And we just get through singing it. This is how I fight my battles. It may look like you're surrounded, but guess what? God's hand is all over you. God's power is all over you. The word of the Lord still reigns in this house, and the promises that God has spoken over this place are yes and amen, and they will come to pass. But here's the deal, though. When God sets you free, when God makes you whole, you are now responsible, which is why some people like staying with the some. Because when you've been made whole, now you have a responsibility. Look at this. The man at the pool of Bethesda, been there, 40 years? The moment he got made whole, he had to get a job. He's sitting at this pool 40 years. I ain't got nobody to put me in the water. What? He ain't want no job. Sometimes when God brings you through and blesses you, it brings you to another level of accountability and responsibility that you did not have before. And some people don't want that. Because when it happens, there's an instant transition for you now to begin to do something that you did not do before. But we have to ask ourselves this question. How did we get here in the first place? Man, y'all ask some good questions. Well, I'm telling y'all been paying attention. I'm so excited. This is the deal, though. So as God is beginning to move on his people's behalf, there's a backstory to it. So, after Solomon's death, the kingdom was divided into the northern and southern kingdom. It was no longer one kingdom, this united kingdom. It was the northern and the southern. Israel to the north, Jerusalem to the south, or Judah to the south, which is where Jerusalem was. And so they had two different leaders now instead of one ruler. And so now we have Jeroboam to the north and Rehoboam to the south. And so what happened was, in the northern, what had happened was, in the northern kingdom, they started wilding out. They were raising up new priests and not of the order of Levi. They were doing their own thing. So all the priests said, you know what? I could tell that my services are no longer needed here. We're going to go down to the southern kingdom. And so they packed up their belongings and they went down to the southern kingdom, down to Jerusalem, and they began to serve there. But then what happened was they came down here and a race war started because these tribes had become divided. And sometimes you can be of one people and still have division. So this race war began in the southern kingdom. And while they went to the southern kingdom to worship the true and living God, they started worshiping other gods. So they were mad because they propped up priests that were not of the certain order. They went to the south side and they ain't even false priests, they just false gods. So the kingdom begins to fall apart and they get taken over, and the enemy stole everything, the gold off the temple. They took everything. And so as the king would go in and out, they started using brass instead of gold because they had taken all the spoils, and so they would put it up and take it down because they didn't want nobody to steal it as he went in and out of the castle. It was a sad day in Jerusalem. So God says, But I know I've got a remnant in there somewhere. I know I've got people down here that are worshiping false gods, and I know I got people down here cutting up, and they're raising up folk that don't even have my blessing on their life. But guess what? I know I got a remnant in there somewhere, and I just stopped by to tell you today. I know it's some chaos going on, and there's some foolishness in the land, but God is looking for a remnant, and I believe with everything in my being, there's a remnant in the house who will be set apart, who are committed to the Lord's work, who are not caught up with all the other stuff, but are saying, God, here I am, use me for your glory. There's a remnant in the land, no matter what's going on, because my God will bring order to chaos. And while it may look a little chaotic and things may seem a little unsettled, I want you to know who's in charge. And when God speaks, it has to happen. Amen. All right, come on. I'm about done. I'm about done. I want to get to this last part here, because I gotta tell you how they got here. So that's the beginning of the story. That's how we get to this verse. But look at what God says. This right here blessed me. He says in verse 8. He says, nevertheless. God says nevertheless. That always blesses me. He says, yeah. Y'all been cutting up. You've been doing the most, and I've granted you some deliverance. But he says, nevertheless, they will be his servants, that he may distinguish my service from the others. So while they were worshiping false gods and doing all kind of other stuff, God said, I'm going to leave a remnant in the midst of them so they can set apart who I am from what everybody else is doing. It doesn't matter what the rest of the world is doing or what anybody else is saying or what they're talking about. God's going to raise up a remnant to distinguish his service from everybody else's. Look at what he says. He says that they may distinguish my service from the service of the kingdoms of the nations. We gonna be set apart. There's a remnant that's gonna be different. God's going to do what he does best. He's going to take that remnant. He's going to do something great with it. The remnant are set apart because for the right reason, even though they went down, they began to worship foreign gods. But God says, I will take what's left and I'm going to make something great out of it. I'm looking for those who will worship me in spirit and in truth, even though everything may go sideways. My hand is still on them, and I'm looking for those who are not caught up with the foolishness, but who will still serve me, who will still honor me, who will still bless my name, who will lift up my name, who will praise me and worship me in spirit and in truth, who will honor me with their service, who will show up not with contention or dissension, but will show up contrite with a humble heart, who will bow down their heads and acknowledge that I am the God of generations from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but I will be with you also. God says, I know they in there somewhere. So here we go. This chapter 12 is the backside of what God spoke to them in chapter 7. So in chapter 7, this is why they only got some deliverance. I promise you, I'm going to be done. I just want to share with you the backstory. Why did they only get some deliverance? Because they only did some of what he asked them to do. Now, have y'all ever thought about this from this context? Because this is a verse that most of us are familiar with. In 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verse 14. Oh, yeah, this is one of our favorites right here. It says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. So they humbled themselves and they got some deliverance, but they forgot part of the process. There's a process to this that God was calling them to. He says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, what? And pray. Oh my God. It's not just enough to humble yourself, to be like, yes, God, I've denounced my pride. I trust in you. But if you ain't praying, you're still relying on yourself. Because prayer says, I rely on you, and you know what's best. Prayer is about hearing from God, not me giving my laundry list to him. If you ain't praying, you ain't humble. He says, if my people who are called by my name, my remnant, will humble themselves and pray. Oh, wait a minute. What else did he say? And he says, and seek my face. What does it mean to seek his face? This is intimacy with God. This is face to face. This is, when we say we go beyond the veil, and we will see him then face to face, beyond the veil. This is intimacy with God where there's nothing there. This means that God is saying, listen, I'm wretched, poor, blind, naked. I have shortcomings. I'm ugly. I got big lips. But guess what, God? I love you with everything that's in me. And here I am. I'm face to face with you. This is the level of intimacy that God is calling us to. This is where we come to in our worship. Come on, somebody. When we worship him, when we bow down before him, when we cry out to him, he begins to pull back the veil. That's why worship is so important, because worship brings us to a place. He says he inhabits the praises of his people. That's how we get face to face, because I believe this, that when praises go up, it's not blessings that come down, the blesser comes down, because he inhabits the praises of his people. So it's not the blessings that come, it's the blesser. And so if we want to be face to face with him, we got to learn how to worship him. They doing other stuff. They had humility, but they weren't praying. They weren't seeking his face. They weren't worshiping him in spirit and in truth. But look at this, he says, and turn from your wicked ways. You can't keep doing the same stuff. Listen, how many times we gonna come in here on Sunday and say, Lord, I won't do it no more. That was fine when we were in high school, when you were doing something you wasn't supposed to do, and you say, God, if she ain't pregnant, I won't do it. Look at all the dudes. Look, don't be looking at nobody. Y'all done prayed some morning after prayers. And that's fine when you're a baby. It's fine when you're on Similac. But we've been in the church too long. We meat eaters now. It's time out for that. It's time out for that foolishness and just trying to blame it on, oh, that's just how no, God says be different. Be set apart. Be holy as I am holy. Because God is trying to move in your life, and God is trying to move in this ministry. We don't need nobody blocking. Y'all know about blockers, right? You sure know. They try to keep you from something good. I know it's been a tough year. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough year. But if God's not dead, then you're not done. When he said, upon this rock I build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it, I didn't see no expiration date on that. Oh yeah. There ain't no expiration date on that. Listen, God's ready to do a new thing. And we got to get outside of ourselves and say, God, whatever it takes. We got to have one of them Isaiah moments and say, here am I, Lord, send me. I'm all in, Lord. I'm going to ride with you all the way. I'm bought in. I'm anchored. I'm settled. I trust you. And I'm willing to fight, God, for what you have called us to do. I'm willing to fight for my church. We Koinonia strong. Because whatever you say is what the enemy comes against. In your name, Koinonia, it activates the enemy to try to disrupt the unity and the brotherhood, the fellowship. It's his whole assignment is to try to twist your name. But God's hand is on you. And I want you today to not be ashamed to be radically bold for Jesus. No. I was having dinner with my friend the other day, and we was at a nicer restaurant than I normally go to. And So I got this pork chop. I ain't never seen a pork chop like that. I think I've been eating breakfast chops. You know, the breakfast chops look like thick bologna with a bone on it. This chop looked like a tomahawk or something. It was a situation. I'm a pork chop guy. I was excited. But we were in a nice restaurant. So I got my knife and fork, and I'm just eating my pork chop like I got good sense. And when I tell you I'm excited about it, it was ministering to me. So I said, man, I really want to pick this thing up. Yeah, I really, that's what I really want to do, but I don't want to embarrass you. My friend looked over at me, he said, man, you ain't embarrassing me. You're embarrassing yourself up here trying to cut that meat off that bone with that knife. Koinonia. There's gonna be you're gonna think some people trying to embarrass you. They're gonna try to bring shame on your name. If you let that control your decisions and thought life, you're missing out on the best part. Don't worry about being embarrassed. God says he's prepared a table for you in the presence of your enemies. Go ahead and dig it. Go ahead and pick the bone up. Lean in. Enjoy the sweet fellowship. Be the Koinonia that God has called you to be. Lean into it. Come on, somebody. Hey, I love y'all. I'm done. That's all I got. Pray God's blessing on you, God's favor. Thank y'all for loving me.